The grand hall of Castle Veyrath shone like a jewel in the night, every torch casting golden light on the walls of carved stone. Music flowed like a river, warm and lively, carrying laughter and the clinking of crystal goblets. Nobles in fine garments moved gracefully through the hall, their voices mingling with the scent of roasted meats and spiced wine. Outside, however, the world was colder, quieter, and darker. Lady Alara sat on a worn stone bench under the shadow of an arched doorway, her slender shoulders trembling beneath the folds of her midnight blue gown. Her hands were pressed against her cheeks, but tears had already found their path, wetting the fabric. The warmth and celebration of the feast felt miles away, though it was only a few steps behind her. Her heart ached in ways that words could not fully hold. She had hoped that tonight would be different. She had arrived at the feast with her finest gown, a gift from her late mother, and a faint hope that someone, anyone, would notice her for more than her family name. Yet the whispers, the sidelong glances, and the pointed jokes had left her exposed, small, and hollow. Even those she trusted had laughed, or worse, ignored her. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of the garden beyond the courtyard. It carried the faint smell of frost and damp earth, a scent that somehow matched the loneliness twisting in her chest. Ilara's fingers trembled as she brushed a strand of hair from her tear-streaked face. Her reflection in the blackened window of the hall was pale and ghost-like. She barely recognized herself anymore. "You shouldn't be out here alone." The voice was deep, quiet, yet commanding. It did not startle her at first, for she had been lost in her own sorrow, but something in it made her still. Her heart beat faster, and she lifted her gaze. He was tall, taller than any man she had ever seen. His shoulders were broad, his movements fluid and deliberate. A silver cloak swept behind him, glinting faintly in the moonlight. His eyes, however, were what caught her completely. They were golden, like sunlight trapped in amber, and they looked straight into her, seeing the hurt she had tried to hide from the world. "Who?" Ilara's voice trembled, unsure. The cold wind stole it almost before it left her lips. The figure took a step closer, and she could see the faint glint of silver in the edges of his teeth when he gave a small, enigmatic smile. He did not carry the air of a man seeking idle conversation. He carried the presence of one who could read hearts and decide whether they deserved protection or fear. "I asked," he said again, gentler now, almost hesitant. "Who hurt you?" The words struck her in a way that no comfort, no gift, and no apology from anyone at the feast had. It was not just concern, it was recognition. She blinked, unsure how to answer. There was fear in his eyes too, she realized. Not of her, but of the emotions she carried like a storm in her chest. My family," she whispered finally. They didn't." Her words failed her. She could not explain how their laughter, their scorn, and their careless cruelty felt like a wound carved into her very soul. He crouched slightly, lowering his height to seem less imposing. "You do not deserve to be treated this way." His voice carried authority, yet the softness of it reached her like a hand brushing away frost. Ilara wanted to look away. She wanted to vanish into the shadows where no one could see her, but something in his presence rooted her to the stone beneath her feet. Perhaps it was his stillness, his patience, or the golden fire in his eyes. Perhaps it was the rare feeling of being seen, not as a lady of noble blood, but as a person, fragile and aching, yet full of quiet strength. You don't understand," she murmured. They think I am weak, worthless." He smiled faintly, though there was no mockery in it. "I understand more than you think." His gaze softened, but it did not leave her. "You are not weak, Lady Alara. The world is cruel, but you carry more courage than most know. I can see it in your eyes. Ilara's chest tightened. Courage. She felt anything but that. She felt broken, exposed, and far too small in a world that demanded strength she could not yet claim. She started, but the words caught in her throat. He extended a hand, slowly, deliberately. Come with me. You do not need to stay in this shadow, alone. Ilara froze. She had expected no one to care. She had expected only whispers and laughter and the cruel games of nobles. And yet here was this stranger, tall, strong, and impossibly commanding, offering her a hand as if the weight of the world could be shared. She hesitated. Her instincts told her to run. Her mind warned her that no one comes for a noblewoman crying alone outside a feast, for reasons that matter. But her heart ached for warmth, for kindness, for the rare understanding she had never received. Slowly, trembling, she placed her hand in his. He led her across the cold courtyard, past frozen fountains and shadowed statues, into a narrow path lined with silver-leafed trees that shimmered in the moonlight. The sounds of the feast faded behind them, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves and the faint whisper of wind against stone. You are safe here, he said softly, though his golden eyes remained vigilant. No one can harm you while I am near. Ilara's voice caught in her throat. Who are you? He paused, studying her. I am Aryan. His tone was simple, but it carried weight. And you? You are someone I have been searching for, though I did not know your name until now. The words felt strange, almost poetic, and yet there was no false charm in them. He spoke as one who had lived long enough to know truths and lies, who had seen betrayal and fear, and who recognized something rare in her, a quiet fire she had not yet admitted to herself. They walked in silence for a moment, the soft glow of moonlight painting silver paths across the frost-laden grass. Ilara felt the warmth of his presence, the steady strength beneath his hand. She could feel it in the steady rhythm of his pulse against hers, though she could not explain why she cared. Finally, she whispered almost to herself, I have never trusted anyone like this. Aryan did not speak immediately. He only looked at her, amber eyes steady and unflinching. Then he nodded once, slowly. Trust is not given lightly. It must be earned. But tonight, I offer it to you freely, and you may keep it or let it go. The choice is yours. Ilara blinked back tears. She wanted to speak, to tell him everything, yet words seemed too fragile to carry the weight of what she felt. She only nodded, allowing him to lead her a little further into the garden where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. They reached a small bench beneath a towering yew tree, its twisted branches stretching toward the sky like frozen fingers. Aryan gestured for her to sit, then stood beside her, neither imposing nor distant. Why me? Ilara finally asked, her voice barely audible above the whispering wind. He looked at her then, and for a moment, the golden fire in his eyes softened into something almost human, almost fragile. Because no one else would see you, and because the world needs someone like you, someone who can endure the darkness without letting it consume them. Ilara's heart fluttered with a strange mix of fear and hope. No one had ever spoken to her like this, and yet she felt as if a small part of herself, long buried under shame and sorrow, was beginning to stir. A silence fell between them, neither uncomfortable nor forced. The wind whispered through the branches above, carrying with it a promise of change. Ilara felt a quiet tension inside her, a feeling she could not name, a pull toward him that was both terrifying and thrilling. She began, but the words faltered again. Aryan reached out, placing a gentle hand over hers. You do not need to explain everything tonight, he said. Let the world wait. For now, be here with me and breathe. That is enough." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Ilara allowed herself to exhale fully. The tears that had been caught in her chest fell freely, and he did not flinch. Nor did he turn away. He simply sat with her, silent, his presence a shield against the pain and mockery she had endured. She looked up at him, her own tears reflecting the moonlight, and whispered, "Thank you." He only nodded, eyes steady and unwavering. "You are stronger than you know, Lady Ilara, and stronger than they have ever seen." The night stretched on, quiet, but alive with the pulse of something ancient, something neither of them fully understood yet. And though shadows lurked beyond the garden, and the sounds of the feast still echoed faintly in the distance, Ilara felt for the first time in her life that she was not alone. But the world beyond the walls would not remain silent forever. Danger, envy, and old wounds waited in the shadows. And Arian, the Lycan king, bore secrets as deep and dark as the night itself. Secrets that could protect her or destroy them both. Ilara tightened her fingers around his hand, and for a moment, the weight of the world seemed lighter. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with fear and wonder alike, but she would not face it alone. And then, from the shadows beyond the moonlit yew, a faint rustle of movement reminded her that the world outside the garden never truly sleeps. Her pulse quickened. The warmth of Orion's presence did little to quiet the rising tension. Whatever waited in the darkness had noticed them. Whatever it was, it would not wait forever. Ilara looked up at him, fear and curiosity mingling in her gaze. What do we do now?" Ariane's golden eyes gleamed in the silver light, a mixture of warning and promise. "We face it, together." And in that moment, though the night was deep and the shadows long, something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged in sorrow, recognition, and a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could face whatever the world threw at them. The feast, the laughter, and the cruelty of the night were far behind them. But the journey ahead was only beginning. Cliffhanger. A shadow detaches itself from the trees at the edge of the garden, watching them silently. It moves with a purpose, and Arian stiffens, senses alert. Ilara feels the cold brush of fear on her spine. Someone has come for her. And this time, it may not be just words or scorn that awaits. The shadow that had stirred at the edge of the garden did not move closer immediately. It lingered, unseen in the folds of darkness, as if testing the silence between the Lycan king and Lady Ilara. Yet in the quiet, Ilara felt the pulse of unease coil around her heart. The warmth she had felt moments before in the presence of Arian now carried a tension she could not ignore. Arian's golden eyes scanned the darkness, alert and sharp. His hand tightened over hers, a subtle anchor, and Ilara felt the silent promise that he would not let harm touch her. He did not speak immediately, letting the sound of the wind and the whispering trees keep the intruder guessing. Then, quietly, he said, "Stay close. Whatever lurks beyond the garden is not simple." Ilara nodded, swallowing the tremor in her throat. She had been drawn to him by his kindness, his presence, yet she now glimpsed the power that lurked beneath his calm exterior. The Lycan king was more than a man. He was a force, ancient and wild, shaped by centuries she could not imagine. Yet he had chosen somehow to stand here beside her, offering protection without question. A soft rustle came again from the trees, and Arian's form shifted. A subtle change, imperceptible to most, but to Ilara it was like a shadow awakening. His movements became fluid, graceful, and watchful, like a predator aware of every sound, every motion. She felt a shiver of awe and fear in equal measure. "You are not afraid?" Arian asked, his voice low, almost a rumble beneath the night wind. Elara hesitated. I am cautious, but I trust you. His eyes softened. Trust is rare. Guard it carefully. They stepped further into the garden, moving along a narrow path lined with silver-leafed trees. The moonlight painted pale patterns across the frost-covered ground, and the air smelled of wet earth and blooming night flowers. The garden was quiet, yet alive with secrets, and Elara felt the weight of the unseen eyes upon them. "Why are you here?" she asked, trying to pierce the mystery surrounding him. "Why do you care about me?" Arian's gaze did not waver. "Because I see what others cannot. Because you carry a strength hidden behind sorrow, and because I, too, have known loneliness and betrayal." Elara looked down at their joined hands, startled by the intensity of his words. There was a weight in them, not of mere sympathy, but of understanding. And understanding, she realized, was more dangerous than the cruel whispers of the feast. Before she could speak again, a movement from the trees startled her. A figure emerged, a man, cloaked and haughty, the same one who had mocked her during the feast. He stepped onto the moonlit path, his eyes narrowing as he saw Arian. "Who is this?" the courtier demanded, his voice sharp. "Why do you have the lady of House Veyrath out here?" Elara's heart pounded and she took a step back. She had expected the scorn of nobles, but not the intervention of someone so dangerous, someone with the golden fire in his eyes. Arian moved, placing himself between Elara and the courtier. His presence was commanding, a silent warning that danger would not be tolerated. "Step aside," he said, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of threat. The courtier laughed, though it lacked true courage. "And who are you?" "Some strange protector. The girl is nothing without her family name. Move aside." Arian's golden eyes narrowed, and the air seemed to thrum with energy. A faint silver glow brushed his skin, subtle but undeniable, like moonlight gathered into shape. His form shifted slightly, taller, more imposing, and Elara could feel the primal power radiating from him. "Do you wish to test me?" he asked, calm yet dangerous. The courtier faltered, sensing the warning in those amber eyes, yet pride held him rooted. He raised a hand, prepared to insult or strike, but Arian's presence alone stopped him. Something ancient and commanding whispered in the space between them. "The Lycan king does not yield." Elara's chest tightened. She had never seen power like this. Not in the nobles of the court, nor in the heroes sung of in tales. This was raw, untamed, yet controlled, a dangerous harmony that could destroy or protect with equal measure. She realized that the man beside her was more than a king. He was a legend in flesh. The courtier hesitated, then muttered, "This is not over," and retreated into the shadows, leaving behind a lingering threat and a cold, uneasy silence. Elara exhaled, trembling. He could have hurt you," she whispered. "Why didn't he?" Arian looked at her, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then he said softly, "Because I do not harm the innocent. And you are not innocent. You carry fire, even in your sorrow." The words left her breathless. Fire in sorrow. That was what she had felt, an ache that would not be silent, a courage she had not known she possessed. And somehow he could see it, recognize it, and even value it. They continued through the garden, moving toward a small fountain where the moonlight pooled in silver ripples. Arian gestured for her to sit on the edge, and she did, her hands resting on her lap as the cool stone chilled her palms. "Why did you come here tonight?" she asked finally, curiosity mingling with caution. "To watch over me? To test me?" He smiled faintly, a shadow of loneliness beneath the strength. "I came because I heard a cry, and because it was yours. I did not know what I would find, only that I could not ignore it. Elara looked at him, searching for arrogance, for pride, for the arrogance of one who commands, yet she found none. There was only honesty and something deeper, an ache of centuries lived with solitude, a hunger for connection that had not been satisfied. "Then, what are you?" she asked, voice barely more than a whisper. "A man? A king? Or something else?" Arian hesitated. His golden eyes reflected the moon, and for a moment she glimpsed something feral, something ancient. "I am what the world fears," he said quietly, "but I am also what it cannot refuse. I am a protector, and a prisoner of a curse that has lasted longer than you can imagine." Ilara's breath caught. "A curse?" He nodded. "Yes. A burden of my own making, or perhaps of fate. I walk between the worlds of man and beast. I guard my people, yet I am bound by a nature that few understand. And yet, tonight, I chose to come to you, because even in this moment of sorrow, I sense something in you worth saving." Ilara felt the weight of his words settle over her, heavy but not suffocating. It was strange to hear such honesty, such raw truth. Most spoke in lies and politeness. He spoke in the language of the heart, though it was tempered by centuries of strength and sorrow. I don't know what to say," she admitted. "No one has ever looked at me like that. Not truly." "Then do not say anything," he replied. "Just stay here. Feel. Listen. Learn that not all eyes carry judgment. Some see and simply recognize." She sat in silence, listening to the night, feeling the tension of shadows and the warmth of moonlight, feeling the strange pulse of life in this garden and the strange pulse of the man beside her. The wind brushed her hair, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and frost. Somewhere far away, the sounds of the feast were fading into a distant memory, leaving only the rhythm of night and the presence of this golden-eyed guardian. Time passed in quiet communion, the kind that spoke louder than words. And yet, even in this fragile peace, Ilara felt a tension she could not name, a warning whispered by instinct. A hint that the world outside this garden would not let them remain undisturbed. "You feel it, don't you?" Arian asked, eyes sweeping the shadows beyond the trees. "The world waits, and it does not always wait kindly." "I do," Ilara whispered. "I feel that danger is near, but I also feel safe with you." He nodded, a faint smile brushing his lips. "Safe is a gift I can offer, but strength must come from within. That you must find yourself." Her chest tightened. She had known weakness and fear all her life, yet in this moment she glimpsed the possibility of courage. Perhaps she could face what the court and the shadows demanded. Perhaps she could endure, with him beside her and even beyond him, in the strength she had yet to claim. The night deepened, and the silvered moon cast long shadows across the garden. Arian remained close, yet he gave her space, an unspoken understanding that trust must grow slowly. And in the silence, Ilara began to feel the stirrings of hope, mingled with fear, and a quiet longing she could not yet name. And then, from the edge of the garden, a distant howl cut through the night, a sound both mournful and terrifying. Arian stiffened, his golden eyes flashing toward the trees. "Come," he said softly, yet with undeniable command. "We must move. It is not safe to linger here." Ilara's heart raced. The strange bond they had begun to form trembled at the sound. She could sense the pull of danger, the edge of the unknown pressing in. Yet she did not hesitate to follow him. Together they moved through the shadows, the howl echoing behind them, carrying a warning and a promise. Something ancient and powerful stirred in the night, something that could not be ignored. Ilara felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement, And though she did not fully understand it, she knew she would not flee. Not from the danger and not from him. For in the golden fire of his eyes, she saw not only power and danger, but also a mirror of her own growing courage, and perhaps the first glimpse of a bond that could defy both darkness and destiny. Cliffhanger. As they reached the far edge of the garden, the shadow that had haunted them stepped into the moonlight. Its form was tall and deliberate, and Arian's golden eyes narrowed. The air thickened with tension. Ilara felt a shiver run through her spine. The night was no longer just a place of solace. It was the beginning of a trial that would test both her courage and the bond she had begun to form with the Lycan king. The shadow that had stalked the edges of the moonlit garden now stood revealed, its shape tall and deliberate. Arian's golden eyes narrowed, reflecting the silver light of the moon. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. The moment of fragile safety she had clung to was gone. Danger, ancient and deliberate, had arrived. "Stay behind me," Orion whispered, his voice steady but laced with warning. The subtle shift in his form sent a ripple through the air, a presence that was no longer entirely human. He moved with precision, controlled power in every step, yet there was a tension that reminded Ilara of the predator that slept beneath his kingly composure. Ilara nodded, clutching the folds of her gown, her heart pounding in time with the rhythm of the forest. The shadow advanced, revealing a man with a cruel smile and cold, calculating eyes. The same courtier who had humiliated her at the feast, now accompanied by others whose intent was clear. They had come to force her back into submission, to break her spirit, and perhaps to provoke Arian into revealing his strength. Arian's stance did not waver. The faint glow around him intensified, silver light brushing the edges of his hair and cloak. The tension in the air was like a living thing, vibrating with the promise of power and the threat of violence. Ilara's breath caught as she realized the magnitude of the moment. She was no longer merely a noblewoman hiding from shame. She was a part of something far greater, entwined with a being whose strength could shift the world itself. "Leave her," Arian said, his voice low but carrying the weight of command that brooked no refusal. The courtier laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Or what? The monster will bite us? The girl's tears are not your concern, Lycan King." Arian's eyes glowed brighter, and the air around him pulsed like the heartbeat of the forest. The wolves in the distance howled in response, a chorus that echoed the raw energy gathering in the night. Ilara could feel it, an ancient force awakening, a force she could not name but instinctively trusted because of the golden-eyed king beside her. "You will leave," he repeated, each word deliberate, measured, carrying the authority of centuries, "or you will witness powers you cannot survive." The courtier faltered, sensing the warning, but pride held him firm. He stepped forward, hand raised, prepared to insult or strike. Yet the forest itself seemed to respond. The wind whipped through the trees, carrying with it the whisper of old magic. Shadows shifted, elongated, and moved with purpose. The night was alive, and it sided with Arian. Ilara felt a tremor in her chest, a mixture of fear and awe. She had never imagined the world could be so vast, so alive with forces unseen and stories untold. And yet here she was, standing on the edge of that world, not alone, but with someone who could both terrify and protect her in equal measure. Before the courtier could act, Arian moved. It was a blur, fluid and graceful, like a shadow made flesh. His presence shifted, more beast than man, his golden eyes burning with an intensity that made the blood of the courtier's allies run cold. They stumbled back, fear replacing arrogance, as the Lycan king revealed a fraction of the power he had held in reserve for centuries. Ilara gasped, both in terror and in awe. She had seen his strength, but never like this, commanding, primal, yet restrained, controlled by something deeper than instinct. And in that moment, she understood why he had been alone all these years. His power was a force the world could not comprehend, a force that demanded respect and caution. The shadowed group finally fled, stumbling through the trees, their threat dissipating like mist under the rising moon. Arian's form shifted back toward the man she had first met, the golden fire in his eyes softening, yet not fading. Are you hurt?" Ilara asked, voice trembling. Her hand brushed against his arm, seeking the solid reassurance of his presence. He shook his head slowly. "No. But danger follows, and we must be ready. The world does not easily forgive those who step beyond their expected roles." Ilara's chest tightened. She had known fear, but she had never felt power intertwined with safety in this way. With him beside her, the night was alive, dangerous, yet somehow beautiful. She realized that the bond forming between them was no accident. It was fate, guiding her through darkness toward a strength she had yet to claim. Arian gestured for her to follow him deeper into the garden, where the moonlight fell in silver patterns across frost-tipped leaves. The space was quiet now, but the energy of the previous confrontation lingered. It was alive in the shadows, in the scent of earth and night flowers, in the very pulse of the air around them. "Tell me," he said, his voice softening, "why did you cry tonight?" "Not just because of them, but because of everything else, the fear, the loneliness, the weight of expectation." Ilara hesitated. Few had asked her such a question, and fewer still had waited for the truth. I have always been expected to be perfect, to smile, to charm, to follow rules I do not understand. But I am not perfect. And they reminded me of that tonight. I felt invisible and small and broken." Arian listened, his expression solemn. "You are not broken, you are human. And the world fears humanity that refuses to bow, that refuses to remain silent in the face of cruelty." Her chest tightened. "But I am not brave," she whispered. "I am just afraid." "Bravery is not the absence of fear," he replied. "It is the choice to act in spite of it. And you chose to leave the hall tonight. You chose to find a moment of peace here, even when the world judged you. That is bravery, Lady Ilara, though you may not see it yet." Tears welled again in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the rare understanding she felt in his words. She had spent her life hidden beneath expectations and judgment. Yet here was someone who saw her, not for her title, nor her beauty, nor her mistakes, but for the strength she carried quietly, unacknowledged. The moon climbed higher, and the silver light bathed them in a glow that seemed almost otherworldly. Arian reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "You will not be alone in this," he said. "I will walk with you through the shadows, and together we may yet find a way to face the darkness without losing ourselves." Ilara's hand rested against his. Feeling the warmth beneath the silver glow, for the first time in her life she allowed herself to imagine something beyond fear, hope, trust, and even something like belonging. And then, as if to remind them that the night was not yet spent, the distant howl of wolves carried across the forest. It was mournful and commanding, a sound that resonated with the Lycan king in ways Ilara could not yet understand. He stiffened, his senses alert to every whisper in the wind, every shadow in the moonlight. "Come," he said, voice low but firm. "There is more to see, more to understand, and it is time you learn why you are here, and why the night itself seems to have drawn us together." Ilara followed, heart pounding, as he led her to the edge of a small clearing. In the center stood a circle of stones, etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The air hummed with ancient power. and Alara felt it brush against her skin, a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying. "This is the circle of the first wolves," Arian explained. "It is a place of old magic, where the Lycan kings of centuries past have bound themselves to their power and to their responsibilities. Tonight, it calls not only to me, but to you as well. You may not yet know it, but your presence here is no accident." Ilara's breath caught. "Me? Why would it call to me?" Arian's golden eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "Because you are part of what comes next. Your courage, your heart, your spirit. They are all needed. And because the curse I bear may find its end only through someone who can see beyond fear, beyond power, to the truth of what lies within." The word settled over her, weighty and strange, yet somehow familiar. She felt the stirrings of something deep inside her, a strength she had not known she possessed, yet had always been part of her. "Are you saying, 'I am meant to help you'?" she whispered, unsure whether it was hope or fear guiding her voice. "In part," he replied, "but also to help yourself. The world is vast and dark, Lady Alara, and the night is full of trials. To survive, you must see your own strength and claim it. I can guide you, but only you can walk the path." She nodded slowly, heart trembling. The path ahead was uncertain, full of danger and challenge. Yet for the first time she felt a spark of readiness. She was not the girl who had cried outside the feast. She was someone more, someone waiting to rise. Arian stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We begin tonight, together." The moon reached its zenith, casting silver light over the circle. Arian raised his hands, and the runes etched into the stones glimmered, feeding off the power he carried. Ilara felt the energy surge around her, brushing her skin, filling her chest with warmth and light. Fear remained, but so did a fierce, radiant courage she could not ignore. And then, in the midst of the glowing circle, the shadow returned, but this time it was not the courtier. It was something older, larger, its presence more ancient than the trees themselves. Arian's golden eyes met hers, and she saw the unflinching resolve that had drawn her to him. "This is the trial," he said softly, "and we will face it. Together." Ilara gripped his hand, feeling the pulse of power beneath his skin, and knew that whatever the night held, she would not face it alone. The howl of the distant wolves echoed once more, answering the call of the circle, and the night seemed to hold its breath. A trial awaited, danger, and the promise of transformation. And for the first time, Lady Alara did not fear the darkness, because she would meet it with him, the Lycan king, at her side. The journey had only begun.